Hello, following my recent video in which we were looking at record locking, a couple of people have asked about validation and making sure that you get the right data in the controls and that you get required data. So I thought, well, now's as good a time as any to address that particular topic as well. So in this video, we're going to be looking at validation and required fields. So I'll be right back after these few words. Hello, this is Martin and welcome to this next video in my series in which I am getting started with OpenInsight 10. This video we're going to be looking at validation very briefly and different ways of managing required fields. Now, for reasons that will become evident in a moment, I want to change the background color of this window to something else. I'm going to let's go for a yellow green because it's medical. Medical tends to be green. And the other thing that I want to do is these three controls are already set to yellow because they're required, but I want the time to be required as well. So let's just go into the background color and we'll set that to khaki, white and horizontal. So that's good. So that's giving our users a visual indicator that we require data for these particular controls. Now we've got a Q banner on the date, so let's just put a Q banner on the time as well. So we'll just have HH and MM for hours and minutes. And I think there we are pretty much prepared. So with regards to validation, if we open the table for this form, so go into Entity, OpenInsight Tables and MP Apps, then you'll remember that when we created this table quite a long time ago, for app date we set the conversion to DL and we set the validation to D, and for the appointment time we did the same. We set a conversion but we set the validation to MT. Now those validations will run through to the form straight away. So if we just come out of here without saving and we test run the form and we go to the appointment date and we just tab off without putting anything in there, we get the OpenInsight system validation that is being produced from that dictionary level. Now we can, if we want to, override that within the form, within the validation section here. So we got the validation and the conversion. I'm going to leave the appointment date, but for the time I do want to make a quick change in here. So for the validation, which I'm pretty much happy with, for time you can see that it's all empty and that's the same as the dictionary, that's fine. But you can see here that we've got different formats for the conversion and I quite like that one. So MTH. So if we just do a cancel there and we go into conversion and we go to date and time, no time, and MTH, and we'll just OK that. If we now test run that, then I believe that if we put 1205 in there, then it gives us a nicer format than the 12 semicolon 05 semicolon 00 that we had before. So that's quite nice. We'll just leave that, won't save those changes. Okay, so that's pretty much validation. Very simple. You've got validation at the dictionary level, you've got validation at the form level here, and you could obviously validate within your own code if you want to. Let's just set these to be required. Where's required gone? There. So those are both set to true, and we'll set these to be true as well. So where's required gone? Okay, they're all set to true. Just make sure yours are as well. So when we then test run the form and we tab off, then we get this data validation error because the data is required. Now this is a system generated message, which is absolutely fine, except for me, I don't particularly like that control name. Now it's right in the way that OpenInsight's working, because it's pulling EDL app date from the control name. And we can solve that by changing it from app date to appointment date. But again, you can't put a space in there and it's going to be uppercase. So for me, I prefer to have it as EDL and appointment date. Assuming that's what I had before. No, I had app date. I need to make sure I keep need to make sure I keep the same name, otherwise I'm going to mess other things up. So let's just double check and make sure that I've kept that the same. So yep, that goes in there. So even if you were to change the control name, you still can't have a space in there, and it's still going to be uppercase. So I would quite like to have my own message. And the other thing as well is that's happening as soon as we tab off. So if we tab off of here, we get the error. We then put the number in, we get to here and we tab off and we get the error again. So we put a date in, we tab to the next control, we tab off, and so you're getting these validation errors all of the time. For some people that can be good because it's forcing you to put the information in as you go. For some other people it can be a bit niggly because you're getting error after error after error. Yes, it's a user error, but there is another way that we can actually handle this. And to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a static text control and I'm going to drop it onto the form up here, and I'm going to position that about there. Let's just move it in slightly, and I'm going to change that to be required underscore ID. We'll get rid of the text. Now before I go any further with that, one of the things I want to do is to make sure that the edit line is in front. So I do a right mouse click, bring to front, and just make sure that that is in front of the new static that we're working with. I'm just going to resize that, just bring it so that it is just around the edit line there. So I need to take it just a little bit wider, so the width will make 88 and the height will make 32. I think that should be fine. Yep, that's good. Then we'll make the background color transparent, and we will make the border 1 pixel, and we'll make it red, and we want all of the edges. So okay that. So what that's basically done is it's now put a red border around that control. So if we now copy and we'll paste another one of those on there, and we'll just arrow it down into that place there. We'll change it to required underscore patient number. Okay, so I've got what have I got? I've got required ID, and we've got required patient number. I'm just double checking because I'm going to copy some code in a moment, and I need to make sure that they are correct. Okay, that's absolutely fine. And then if we do a copy, and we'll just come down to here and we'll do a need it on the window bit. We'll do a paste. We'll just grab that. and I want to have that around this control, so I'll just move that into place, drag it across, think about there. Okay, now I've actually lost the control because it's behind, so if we go into here, and I think it's probably going to be label 10, so we'll call that required underscore, I think just date for that one. So we got date. Okay, that's absolutely fine. We will bring to front. Now the problem with bringing it to front is it's now in front of the edit line, so we'll move that out of the way using the arrow keys, right mouse click, bring to front, and then we'll just take that back. We will do a copy, and we'll drop another one of those onto the form, and we want that to be around the time. Let's just resize that. We'll make that required underscore time, and I suspect that that's going to disappear as well, so do bring to front. We'll then just move it out of the way, bring to front, just being a bit over cautious here. Okay, so that's slightly too wide, so we'll pick that up, and the width we'll do 104. I think that should be fine. And then I'm going to select all of these. Now these two are on the group box, so I can't do all of them at the same time, but I'm going to set these to invisible. Now within the IDE, when we set something to invisible, it does actually disappear. Now it hasn't lost the controls, obviously they're still there, but if you need to see them, if you right mouse click on the window and show hidden controls, then you can see those hidden controls so that you can continue to work with them in a good way. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to be looking at the apps events procedure that we created earlier on, and I'm going to need to grab some code, so just bear with me for a moment. So that one there. So I'm going to add a new case statement in here, which is going to be case event is equal to write. So on the write event, we're going to go sub save. Now we don't have an on save, so go sub on save. So I need to go away and just grab that code as well, and there's quite a bit of that, so bear with me just a moment. Boom, boom, boom. Come down to there. We'll do a copy, and we will drop that into here. So first of all, I must apologize for my code. This is probably not optimized. It's probably not the right code. In fact, I'm going to show you something similar with case statements in a moment. But what we have here is some code where we are going to get some values. So we're going to set val 1, 2, 3 and 4, and we're going to pick up the values from our required fields. We're then going to do a vowel check equals val 1, val 2, val 3, val 4, so that we can see whether we have got information in there or not. So for val 1, if it's empty, the user hasn't put any data in, we're going to set that to appointment number. Otherwise, don't worry about it. They've entered something, we're good. We're not too worried about what they've entered, so long as they've entered something. If you were interested in verifying that the data that they've entered is correctly, like it's a number and not a name, then you need to go a little bit further. I'm keeping it simple. Val 2, again, the check, and if it isn't anything in there, then we'll put patient number into the variable. The same for the appointment date, the same for the appointment time. Then we start to build up the message. So if val 1 equals appointment number, we know there's nothing in there, then we'll set the message to be appointment number. And we're going to set the property for our required red box that we just created to make that visible. Otherwise, we will leave the messages blank, and we'll make sure that the red box doesn't display. And we're going to do the same for the patient number, and we're going to do the same for appointment date, and we're going to do the same for time. Then at the bottom here, if the message is still empty, in other words, we've got information in all of the required fields, then we'll make sure that we set the red box to invisible, and we'll do a retval1, which will then go on to work through the call stack to do the save. If not, then we're going to build a message. So this is val message equals, and then our message. Now you'll notice in here that I've got a pipe symbol, and the pipe symbol basically means that it will do a carriage return. So it's going to format the message nicely for me. And if I just come across here, you'll see at the end I've got 2 pipes, and then we're going to concatenate val message. So whatever's in our val message will become the last part. In other words, that's going to be the fields that we require. We then call the message, passing in val message, and we're going to be using npmsg required apps. Now we haven't created that, so if I do a copy and we do a file open, entity, I need to come down to my message boxes, and I think the one that we'll probably use is error message. Now the first thing we're going to do is a file, save as, and we'll save it as npmsg required apps. And then the processing error is wrong. We just call this data required, and again in here data required. Maybe we wouldn't want the full stop icon. We might want to change that to something else, but I'm okay to leave that one there for the moment. I think okay, none, they're all fine. I'm pretty much okay with that message, I think. So we'll just do a save and close, back to the form, into the code, and then at the end here we do a return value, or retval equals 0. So that's going to stop the processing and it won't fire the save. And then we go back into the code and continue to run. So if I do a compile on there, then we're okay. Error info is potentially unassigned on 271. So if we double click that, it will take us to 271. And to get around that, what we can simply do is grab error info, Control C, and error info equals 0 equals null. And if we then do a compile, then it's clean. So the amber ones are only a warning. Red are bad, amber's only a warning, but if you want to remove all of the amber warnings, then that's a way to do that. Okay, so now if we go back to the just make sure that I did compile it, just make sure I saved it. If we then go back to the appointments form, because we've made a change to the code, I'm going to do a save on the form. And because I haven't got a save button, I'm going to go to the MDI main form. And for the moment, I'm just going to grab this button, copy, and we'll do a paste. I'll just move that over for the moment. We'll change the glyph to be our doctor. There we go. And we'll change the button name to button_apps. And we'll have this as appointment, I think. Yeah, because it doesn't quite fit, so I'll just make that a bit wider. Might want to resize some of these buttons just so that they're all the same size, but that will do for the moment. Into the events now, we got a quick event for that, which is to start the MDI child, MP patient, and the form that we want is going to be just change that to MP apps. So OK that. We'll save and close. We'll test run the form. And theoretically now appointment should launch our window, which it does. And if we try and do a save without doing anything, then we have a small issue. And I know what that issue is. We're still hitting the system code. And the reason that we are hitting the system code is because I have forgotten to set the quick event on the window. So this is the window events. Make sure you've got MP apps window at the top. On the right event, we need to call the commuter module. Now, here's a correction to my earlier video. One of the developers picked me up on this. I was executing a store procedure and then passing in the target, and that's perfectly okay, and that works fine. What we can do though is just very simply call commuter module at window events. It does the same thing, but what it's going to do is where OpenInsight sees at window, it will swap at window out for the window name. So as long as your window commuter module is the same name as the window, this will work. If your commuter module is a different name, it won't, and you'll need to do it the other way. Anyway, hopefully you understand and that makes sense. So we'll just do a save and close. We'll just do a save on there. We'll do a test run, appointment to launch the window. And now if we do a save record, okay, that didn't work. So I've missed something. Okay, what I've done this time is within our quick event for the window, what's happening is you've got to think about the order in which events in OpenInsight work. So normally what happens is OpenInsight will run the script. There is no script. It will then run any system code. It will then run your quick event. So the problem I've got here is although I'm calling the commuter module from the quick event, it's actually doing the write before it hits my commuter module. So it's not hitting my code. So what we need to do here is change has priority to 2. And then if we save that, and I'm just going to resave the form, and I'm going to resave the procedure as well. I tend to resave everything just to be sure. We will then test run appointment, and this time hopefully, there we go. Now we hit our commuter module code. So remember, if you're going to be using the quick events, they fire after system code. And we've hooked this up to the right event for the window, which calls system code. Okay, so now we get our nice message. We get the text, sorry, but the following fields which are also highlighted in red, blah, 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 please review. And then using the pipes, we formatted this so that we get patient number, appointment date, and appointment time. We haven't got it for the appointment number because we got a value in there. And also for the users, when they click OK, okay, I won't worry about that one for the moment. That's because I need to put something in there. For the moment, the required fields are not only highlighted in yellow, but we've now got these nice red boxes around them. So if I was to select Bill Bennett here and I do a save, now it's modified accordingly so that we just get appointment date and appointment time, and those two fields are flagged up. And again, if I was to put an appointment date in there and a time and tab off and we do a save, now it will save that particular record without any warnings. So that's one way of tackling this particular issue with if statements. I'm just going to close down this copy of OpenInsight and I'm going to open up the examples application in a different copy. And if I go to the MP Cust Entry window here and we do a test run, and I try and do a save without adding any information in, I get a data validation error. The following fields require completion before this record can be saved. Company name, first name, last name, please complete and try saving again. So we get a different style of error message. It's similar, slightly different. Instead of having the validated controls at the bottom here, or the required controls, they're now embedded within the message. And this particular message is produced again on the write event. So if I just launch the write event for this window, move that over. Again, the first thing we're doing is setting some variables. We're then finding whether we've got data in there. If we haven't, then we will add in the text that we want to include within the message. So I've got a space, company name, comma, space, first name, comma, last name, comma, etc. Then we run some case statements, and depending on the different case, we will do different things, and we will then create the message where we have the first part of the message. So the following fields require completion before this record can be saved. We then concatenate val fields and then try again, where val fields will be the appropriate fields that we need. So if you don't like multiple if statements and nested if statements, which a lot of people don't, then you can do this with case statements. Or again, I'm not a programmer, so you may well be able to create your own far better code that's more optimized, more efficient, but you get the idea. What we're doing is we're just moving away from the OpenInsight generated messages, which have what I refer to as less user-friendly names, and there's nothing else that Revelation can really do because it's just grabbing the controls that you named, and it's dropping into there something that is a little bit more user-friendly, arguably a little bit more colourful, but I think it's a just nicer way of reporting those required fields. So that's a little bit about validation, quite a bit more about required fields. Hopefully you found it useful, and I'll see you on the next video coming very soon. Take care. Bye bye.